Buenas tardes. Welcome to our Build Up California network meeting for the month of October. Bienvenidas a nuestra junta de octubre para Build Up California. My name is Esmeralda, and I am the Partnerships and Policy Manager who works on Build Up California at the Low Income Investment Fund. And we are a statewide network dedicated to the equitable expansion, improvement, and sustainability of early learning and care facilities throughout the state of California. Our initiative began in 2020, and our purpose is to promote information sharing on early learning and care facilities issues, including technical assistance and capacity building. We recommend legislation and regulation changes to increase access to high-quality ECE facilities, and we are members of the California ECE Coalition. I want to remind everyone that we're in a meeting, so if you can please be on mute. We are going to go ahead and get started. We have a Zoom poll, and we wanted to do a pre-survey with all of our participants to gather some information about what you know about today's meeting topic, which is SB 234. So we are going to go ahead and launch the Zoom poll. I will read the questions out loud, and Rosario will be translating them into Spanish. Please give us a moment while we get that loaded up.
Is everybody seeing the Zoom poll?
I don't see it.
Okay, let's try again.
There it is. Thank you for being patient with us. So here are the questions. The first one is, what area of California are you joining us from? Central California, the Greater Bay Area, Northern California, or Southern California? Our second question is, where is family childcare allowed? Single family homes, apartments, both, or neither? And for FCCs, the city must require a business license, zoning permits, liability insurance, all of the above, or none of the above. And the last question, landlords can refuse to rent to family childcare, is a true or false question. So yes, no, or unsure. So please submit your answers. Don't worry, this is not a graded test. We just want to see what you know so far. And we're going to be doing some similar questions at the end to just see pre and post data. So if you could please take a minute, answer the questions, and then we will end the poll in about 1 more minute, just so we can get some answers. Looks like we have 21 people who have answered, and we have about 40 folks in the room, a little bit more than 40. And while you're answering those questions, I am going to go ahead and introduce our amazing partners who have joined us for today's presentation. Our first presenter is Courtney Baltiski, and she is an advocate for children, youth, and their families. She has over 15 years of experience in child and youth program development, and is now the Vice President of Policy and Advocacy with the YMCA of San Diego County. At the Y, she helps build collaboration to impact systems level change. She focuses on multiple issues, including childcare, expanded learning programs, and mental and behavioral health. Courtney has built a career on leveraging the intersection between public, private, and philanthropic and nonprofit agencies for the community benefit through a collaborative spirit, innovative thinking, and evidence-based decision-making. She helps facilitate the Children's First Collective of San Diego and loves exploring nature with her 2 young kiddos. And I'm also going to introduce Karina Liago from the Child Care Law Center. Karina directs her passion to help others in public service through her work at the Child Care Law Center, providing legal assistance to family and child care providers, parents, and elected officials. Ms. Iago is on the legislative advocacy team, and through her role at the Law Center has helped activate thousands of supporters and lawmakers to support the Family Fee Pandemic Relief Act, AB 92, which was adopted in 2021, 2022, and 2023-2024 state budgets by Governor Newsom. So we're really excited. Yeah, snaps for Courtney and Karina. We're so excited to have them today. And I'm going to hand it over to them. Thank you for those who submitted their results on our pre-survey. I'm going to go ahead and share the results really quickly before we go ahead and do that. So if you, I don't know if you guys can let me know if you can give me a thumbs up if you can see the share results. Thanks. So this is what we have. This is what we have for the answers. Right now, a lot of our folks are joining us from Southern California and the Greater Bay Area. We have some people from Northern California and Central California as well. And here you see for where is childcare allowed, many people responded single family and both. And for FCCs, what they require, none of the above, 13 folks. And true or false, many people put false, and we'll give you the answers at the end of our meeting. And please check the chat. And if you have any questions, drop them in and we'll make sure that we have time at the end for questions and answers. So I'm going to hand it over to Courtney now. Thank you.
Disculpa.
Thanks so much, Esmeralda. It's great to be here with all of you today.
Perdón, buenas.
Did somebody want to chime in?
Sí, perdón. Quiero hacer una pregunta, no de lo que están hablando. Lo que pasa es de que en español le puse en el globo, pero no se hizo la traducción. O no sé si van a hablarlo en inglés y luego en español, no sé.
Va a ser en inglés y español. Si toca el globo y puede ir para abajo a donde está Spanish, allí puede entrar al salón de español.
Sí, pero, ok. El globo es donde dice interpretación, le apachurré.
Sí.
Ok, ya.
Y tiene que seleccionar Spanish para poder estar en el salón de español, por favor.
Ya lo puse, pero no sé si me va a llevar o cómo es.
Ok, déjame ayudarle a usted.
Disculpe.
Gracias.
Si me puedes ayudar a mí también, por favor. Es que sí, según yo lo puse, pero me manda ahí donde lo traducen nada más y lo escriben, pero no me manda al salón.
¿Me pueden mandar un mensaje privado para que yo les ayude con eso?
Sí.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Okay, Courtney, go. You may begin. Thank you for your patience. I'm going to help them off getting them in the Spanish room.
No problem. No problem. And if other folks need help with Spanish translation, feel free to come off mute, throw up a reaction. We want everybody to be able to listen and participate to our session today. It's a pleasure to be here today, both in sharing space with you all and Build Up California, as well as to be here representing two organizations, the YMCA of San Diego County, which is San Diego's resource and referral network, as well as one of two state subsidy providers, and then also our advocacy collective in San Diego for childcare called the Children First Collective. And it's really wonderful to see some other San Diego partners here, including Ms. Marin. So thank you for coming on today and taking time out of your busy schedules. Can I get like a thumbs up if people have been on a Build Up call in previous months? Esmeralda's definitely been here. Ms. Marin's been here, Matthew, Don, wonderful. So some repeaters, which is great. I think that Build Up California has done a remarkable job of bringing us together in some really terrific resource sharing, technical assistance, and community building across our state to really amass power and continue to encourage system level change in our childcare sector. And Pamela, when you feel ready, if you want to cue the slides, I think we're ready for that.
Thank you. Here we go. Are you seeing the slides now?
Yes. So today we're really talking about intentional partnership for system level change. We're going to be showcasing an experience in San Diego and how we've gotten far fast in the city of San Diego in protecting the unique tenant rights of our family childcare providers, and how in partnering with UDW Childcare, as well as the Childcare Law Center, the Children First Collective was able to really implement SB 234 successfully and to a new level in the city of San Diego. If you've been on a network call previously, you may have heard a bit about what we're trying to do in San Diego. Children First Collective brings together a caring group of organizations and leaders to tackle the challenges of access to affordable quality child care. We know that we're in a terrific audience and we all share that commitment and passion towards this issue. So give yourselves a round of applause there. We've come far, but we know we have so much more to do. And Children First Collective is really based in the values of equity, compassion, and importantly, hope. We know that none of this work is easy. We know that this sector is based on historic and current injustices based on racism, classism, sexism, and Children First Collective always leads with that recognition of the continued injustices in our sector. The dynamic and structure of Children First Collective really embraces a lot of the agencies that you all are a part of across the state. We have representation from providers in our mixed delivery system, including family child care and center-based programs. We have our alternative payment providers, our RNRs, Head Start. We have our municipal departments, so our County of San Diego and City of San Diego participate in this space. Our First Five participates in this space, and our local philanthropic community. And that's our work group. We came together over 4 years ago. We had a lot of shared success during the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic, securing as high as $51 million in pandemic relief funding that went to our childcare providers, as well as to essential working families. Now we see grants coming out in San Diego that address the childcare workforce crisis, as well as new innovations, including our Shared Service Alliance and unique research, including a local cost model survey. So we have a lot happening, which is really all strategy and tactics and organizational resources to make sure that we are working towards getting local dedicated funding for children, youth, childcare providers, and families in our San Diego region. If that sounds exciting to you, throw up a reaction. We got to raise the roof from Karina. I love it. Some hands clapping. Yes. And I know that a lot of you across the state are also in similar work. So being able to come together to learn from one another is so exciting and so important. Slide. Based on the research that we've done with providers, as well as understanding what's happening on a federal and state level in childcare advocacy, Children First Collective has committed to research and campaigns and strategies tied to 6 key areas to help address our local childcare crisis. I mentioned that our longer term goal is local dedicated funding for children and families. Right now, we're focused on that being tied to budget advocacy and getting funding secured through our county and city budget processes. We're also dedicated to mental and behavioral health support for children and their caregivers, especially our 0 to 5-year-olds, their childcare providers and their parents and caregivers. Addressing the childcare workforce crisis, and within that, it's also addressing the pay parity in our childcare sector and making sure that we're working towards fair, equitable wages for all of our early educators in our mixed delivery system. Local government infrastructure and supports for children and family. So having this work live somewhere within our local cities and counties, so that we can strategize both externally in organizing community, but then also have allies working inside government systems locally, so that what our elected officials and people of power and influencers are hearing is both happening inside the building and outside the building. Benefits and policies that support working parents. We do a lot of engagement with employers, our Regional Economic Development Corporation, as well as our Regional Chamber of Commerce, around the relationship building around this critical issue. And then finally, facilities, including childcare centers and homes in our mixed delivery system. And today's conversation and pairing with Karina and Lori at the Child Care Law Center is really around this facilities component. Slide, please. So as Esmeralda mentioned in my introduction, one of the things that has been really critical in addressing San Diego's childcare crisis is making sure that we're leading with data. So your R&R might be able to produce this. We've got the statewide resource and referral network also producing really critical data. But it's really important for your local elected officials to know what your childcare crisis is looking like, what that access and opportunity looks like for families, and what childcare providers are really enduring right now. So this is an example of a data dashboard that the YMCA has produced, and it is a resource that Children First Collective uses on a regular basis. So you see here that we tracked the number of licensed childcare providers as well as the number of licensed slots, both from the start of the COVID pandemic in March 2020, and then this pulse check on data ended in May 2023. So we always lift the data fact that in San Diego County, during that span of the COVID-19 pandemic, we lost 5% of our family childcare homes and 10% of our childcare centers. You can see kind of the increase of school age care, and we know that that's attributed to care scenarios that's happening for the TK program. But in leading with equity and knowing that the TK implementation has been really impactful for our childcare sector, you'll see that we also called out the important point that TK is creating added stress and financial hardship for our childcare providers. We also call out this deficit of funding within the system between what it costs to run a program and then the cost of quality care. So in one page, you get a lot of really rich information. And so in sharing this information widely with our child care champions who are elected officials, we're excited to be at a place where a lot of them had said, what can I do? What's next? And how we change these numbers, and how we add license slots, and how we maintain our existing slots. Next slide. So in San Diego, a strategy really became making sure that we maintain our existing slots in our family childcare homes. We know that 5% of our family childcare homes decreased during the pandemic. We know that we're living in a deficit, hi Nora, of 60 to 90%, especially for those infant and toddler slots. So we need to maintain and support and lift up our family childcare providers. But what we were hearing from our partners at UDW Childcare, as well as partners with Parent Voices, is that even though SB 234 had been passed, our family childcare providers continued to be, I'm going to say it, harassed, threatened, and even unlawfully evicted from their homes, interrupting their businesses, interrupting the services that so many families were receiving. So we got to work, and we're going to talk a bit more about the strategies and our work with a particular council member right after we learn a bit more about the background and the power of SB 234. But before I turn it over to Karina, I just wanted to ask Ms. Marin if she had anything else to add, because she's also been on this journey with us from day one.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. And I just want to say that Children's First Collective has been making such an impact in San Diego and directly impacting family childcare providers. And we know it is the hard work of Children's First Collective and the childcare champions out there that many providers in San Diego are able to keep their doors open and have been able to keep their doors open by securing funding. The first large PPE drive that we had, it was the collective effort of these organizations and individuals that come together to support not only family childcare providers, but providers across the county. And we're very fortunate to have such an amazing group of hardworking individuals, always keeping children and families front and center of their advocacy efforts. And I'm very fortunate to be a part of these collective, and we'll continue to work in the best interest of our communities and strengthening the early care and education workforce. Thank you.
Thanks, Marin. We also have a lot of fun. So with that, I'll turn it over to Karina to talk a bit more about SB 234.
Thank you so much, Maiden and Courtney. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us. I do have a bunch of slides. I'm not going to go in depth, so please don't feel rushed, since I believe you'll get the slides afterwards, so the information will still be there. So if I do a lot of skip slides, I'm just trying to make sure that we respect your time. So firstly, I want to talk about what it was like before SB 234. So in the photo, you see Benu, who's in this call today. Before SB 234, a lot of cities had discretion to have requirements on large family childcare, but in only certain areas. However, a lot of cities kind of went outside of that scope, and their discretion ended up with a lot of childcare providers having to meet egregious requirements for zoning and business licenses. Some of them had to get architectural drawings. Some of them had to spend thousands of dollars changing their homes only to be able to operate or even be denied operation. And so what Child Care Law Center did when the providers came to us telling us of this problem was we went city by city to inform the cities of, one, what childcare is, why it's important, and how their ordinances were hurting the operation expansion and for childcare providers. And so that's what you see in the photo here is Benu actually talking to her local city to inform what it was. of what family childcare is. And it's important, this education piece was really important because one, there was a confusion even in the definition in some ordinances of the difference between a family childcare home and a childcare center, a commercial center, which can range from how many families are served and how many spaces, the facilities, what's needed, and so there was confusion about that. And the second piece of this educational component was to inform cities and city council members that even because there was a fear that without a zoning permit or a business license, that there would be no regulations on family childcare. But as most of you know, as family childcare homes, you are required to comply with health and safety requirements, community care licensing guidelines, as well as large family childcare homes are supposed to complete a local fire clearance inspection. And so informing that even without a business license or zoning permit, children would still be safe. There would still be health and safety requirements that would be put on family childcare providers. Next slide, please. And so just a little bit about us. We are the Child Care Law Center. We advocate, educate, and litigate when needed to make childcare a civil right. Next slide, please. And so, as most of you know, family childcare is different from a center because the care occurs inside of the home where the provider lives. Providers are licensed and regulated by the Department of Social Services Community Care Licensing, and they must comply with health and safety requirements, as well as the state fire marshal guidance and rules. Next slide, please. Family childcare providers are able to operate in their rental homes that are leased, or homes that they own, and many families prefer that nurturing home-based childcare setting over other settings. And as Courtney showed, locally for San Diego, even before the pandemic, there was an issue of families not being able to get the care that they need, even though they wanted care or they were eligible for care, just because there was a lack of facilities, home-based facilities available to them. Slide. And so this is basically where the law lives. The Child Daycare Facilities Act, which applies to family childcare homes and centers, but primarily, if anyone wants to find the law, it's in Division 2, Chapter 3.6 of the Health and Safety Code. This is a little bit about the Child Daycare Facilities Act, which first regulated family childcare. So one, it recognized that there was an issue, there's a statewide concern that there's not enough family childcare available, especially for working families, and that a lot of families do prefer care that's local and close to their home. Next slide. And so what SB 234 did help was clarify protections and provider rights in the Child Daycare Facilities Act. So the first very important thing is that all family childcare homes, large and small, must be considered a residential use of property for all local rules, which means that they can't be considered a business, or they're not considered another entity. It's just like using your home like a normal home. And so in doing so, that they're allowed in all types of residential settings, because if you can live there like a home, then you can operate a family childcare home. And it protected providers by prohibiting the refusal to rent to them because they operate a family childcare home. Right. Additionally, it clarified that providers had the right to remedies and procedures under the Fair Employment and Housing Act if they're denied housing or discriminated under certain provisions of the Child Daycare Facilities Act. And it requires the Office of the State Fire Marshal to provide statewide guidance for family childcare homes and to keep their code current, because it was confusing before, and so the guidance helped clarify what applies to large family childcare homes and small. Yep, thank you. So that's a little bit about what the SB 234 did for local government agencies, and now returning to what the law does for private individuals like landlords or property managers. So these individuals on the screen, they're prohibited from they are prohibited from denying or preventing someone from opening or operating a family child care home. And the reason why is because using someone's home, using your home as a child care home is considered a residential use of property. So it's just like living there. Next slide. So additionally, these individuals are not allowed to refuse to rent to someone solely or only because they want to or currently operate a family child care home, and they cannot evict someone solely or only because they operate. Next slide, please. Additionally, this also applies to the homeowners association, so not only individuals who rent housing, but HOAs, so they can't remove a homeowner only because they currently operate or want to, and they cannot refuse to rent or sell. Additionally, mortgage companies, lenders, and other individuals, they cannot refuse to issue loans or sell again, just because the person's a family child care provider. Next slide. Additionally, we want to talk about notice or consent because we've heard some confusion about what notice is and when you have to give consent or get consent. So notice is informing and consent is asking for permission. So the only time, so when a renter must give notice, must inform their property owner or landlord is when they want to open a new childcare or when they're moving from one house to another with an existing childcare. When a renter must get permission is when they want to add the 2 or more school-age children on top of their license, subject to community care licensing, health and safety requirements. So a provider doesn't have to ask for consent or ask for permission to open a family childcare. They just have to give notice or inform the landlord that they will be opening. Next slide. Oh, I think I see in the chat that there's an audio issue. Is everyone still able to hear me? Yes, okay, I see it now. Thank you, Esmeralda. And so additionally, hopefully we'll be able to figure that out for the person who can't hear. But we also want to make clear that in the law, liability insurance is not required for family child care homes because there are other options, although it is highly recommended. So there may be some confusion about when it's required or not, but it is recommended. Next slide. And if a landlord or HOA wants to be part of a provider's liability insurance policy, all 4 of these, so 1, 2, 3, 4, these 4 things have to occur in order for a HOA or landlord to be added. So I just want to check again. Everyone can hear me still? Yeah, okay. Sorry, I just saw another message. Just want to be sure. And so if one of these 4 are not included, then a provider is not required to add the landlord or HOA yet. Next slide. Okay, and so this slide talks about what homeowners insurance companies cannot do. So this is a protection for both the renter provider and for the landlord, because homeowners insurance companies cannot fail to renew or cancel a policy just because a family child care home is operated on the property, and they can't refuse to or cancel a policy because of the source of income, like the landlord gets rent from a family child care provider, or the family child care provider gets income from being a provider, just because of their source of income. Next slide. So these are a list of what local governments are not allowed to regulate. So they cannot require a zoning permit. They cannot require a business license, even at no cost. and business, and they're not allowed to require business taxes. They can't require specific rules only for family childcare providers. So I want to give a quick example of this last one. So before, there used to be rules that said, if you're a family childcare provider, you must have a 6-foot fence around your house. So that rule under SB 234 is not allowed because it's a rule that only applies for family childcare homes. However, if there was a rule in a city that every house has to have a 6-foot fence, then houses are treated the same, individuals are treated the same, and so that rule would be okay. But rules that are created only to apply to family childcare providers because they're family childcare homes, those are no longer permitted. Again, additionally, for the last note, the only local authority that can regulate the use or condition of a family childcare home is the fire department. However, the fire department rules must comply with the state building code, and the little caveat is of that is, again, if there is a rule that applies to all homes in the residences, including family childcare homes, then it's okay. But again, the local authority cannot just create laws that are, or cannot create rules that are just only for family childcare homes. Next slide. Again, this is just a summary of the exceptions so that as long as the rules apply for all, then it's okay. And the local fire department does have its discretion for local fire clearance as long as it applies. Next slide. And so this is what the law doesn't change. So even though there were protections for family childcare homes, the landlord consent requirement remains the same. The local business zoning and building requirements that apply to all homes stays the same. The health and safety licensing requirements that apply already to family childcare homes stays the same, and the requirement that large family childcare homes get a clearance in order to be a large family childcare home stays the same. So these 4 things do not change under the law. Next slide, please. And I know this is really, really fast, and it felt really quick and kind of shallow, but we do have resources that will be shared with you, and the slides that will be shared with you. So hopefully you can have more information. And on the next slide, we can go. You can see that where our publications are. Next slide, please. Sorry about that. Where our publications are, where you can go and get help from us, and you're able to contact us. And so in the scope of what SB 234 did at the state level, we worked with San Diego directly to help bolster the protections for San Diego because the state law is so strong. And while the local city of San Diego wanted additional protections, we were able to work together in order to develop a really meaningful and helpful way to continue to serve family childcare providers. And so that's my little transition back to Courtney, who can take it from there. Thank you so much. Oh, I think you're on mute still.
Beep, beep. Thanks, Karina. We're seeing a couple things in the chat. I'll slow down to make sure that translation can keep pace. And then we also had a couple questions in the chat. The first is a really cool, important one about how we measure Children First Collective success. I'll say that the work that we've done collectively, we measure outcome impacts, including, new policies, new dollars at the door for our childcare sector, the number of individuals impacted by that policy change and investment. And then when it comes to our individual campaigns, we do use an advocacy platform. And through that advocacy platform, we're also able to measure engagement in the advocacy process. So how many texts and tweets are going out, how many emails are sent, where those emails are going, whether it's to County Board of Supervisors or City Council members, how many people are showing out to give public comments on the phone or in person. So we track all of that. But more important than that quantitative data, I think the qualitative data is important as well. And so the camaraderie and the participation in the collective and the feeling of what we try to inspire together is also a really important indicator for us on how we are finding success collectively. And I'm happy to talk more offline if folks are interested in that and how we're organizing. I'll put my cell phone number and email in the chat. The other question was how many cities in the San Diego region are implementing SB 234? And it's an interesting question for San Diego as well as for our state. The implementation is really tested when a family childcare provider goes to apply for potentially a conditional use permit or to file with the business office or to get their fire marshal inspection. And if they have to go through the outdated process of zoning regulations, conditional use permits, that's evidence that implementation is not happening. And Child Care Law Center is pulling more of that data from local cities. In San Diego, we don't have data on where that's happening, but we do have data on all of our cities and who is adapting language on their websites to bring awareness of SB 234, and also who has updated their city ordinances and like their planning documentations to reflect SB 234. So hopefully that answers some of your question. The challenging thing is that even though SB 234 is law, that enforcement becomes the rub and the challenge. So what we found in working with providers as well as landlords is that there was just a lack of awareness about SB 234 and what it was and what those unique tenant protections look like. Beyond that, how critical family childcare is as a business and a service to community. So when we met with one of our local council members, Raul Campillo, in the city of San Diego, and he saw the childcare data and he said to us, what can I do to change these numbers? We got smart together to make a local change. And we were able to do that in partnering with our local family childcare providers. And we were able, hang on, I'm presenting right now to all these people. Can you say hi? No. So we were able to take Councilmember Campillo to a few different family childcare provider businesses, and they were able to talk to him directly about the discrimination that they were experiencing from their landlords despite SB 234 existing. So it took about 9 months, but we employed a number of different organizing tactics. We did the tours to family childcare homes. We had ongoing conversations, not just with Councilmember Campillo's team, but with our mayor's team, as well as the 8 other council members, to make sure they all understood the importance of this issue.
Mom, this is really quick.
What's up? No.
I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, go. We continued that ongoing learning with different regions across the state, as well as the Child Care Law Center. And the Child Care Law Center really emerged as our thought partner and subject matter expert in this area. So when it got to a place where Councilmember Campillo's team was then working with our San Diego City attorney Our city attorney's team and Child Care Law Center were then able to work directly together. And we figured out a way to get past what's called preemption. So preemption was something we learned about, but it basically means you can't have a local law that becomes stronger than a state law. So we couldn't do anything in the city of San Diego to do like a whistleblower policy or to do anything that was stronger than the language in SB 234. Slide, please. So what we did land on was around this awareness piece and making sure that communities all knew about SB 234 and those unique protections. So what ended up coming to first our Economic Development and Intergovernmental Relations Committee, and then to our full council in the city of San Diego, was an action that put SB 234 language into all lease and rental agreements in the city of San Diego, so that childcare providers knew their rights and so that landlords knew their rights as well. Slide. So I'll share screen quickly to just give you a brief opportunity to hear what that conversation in council ended up looking like. This is one of our San Diego champions, council member Campillo, introducing the item in July around adopting rental agreements notice requirements related to family childcare operations.
This item.
Okay, Councilmember Campillo, would you like to introduce yourself, your staff, and let us know how much time you'd like for the item?
Yes, thank you, Council President. I'm excited to be here today to bring this item forward to the Council for consideration. From improved parental benefits to a new office focused on our children and youth and to protecting renters who want to operate family childcare, my office and I am committed to using our role as legislators in the city of San Diego to make San Diego a more family-friendly city. And families across the county and our city lack access to affordable, quality childcare. And as we know, the pandemic only made things worse. But in-home family childcare is an excellent local option for families and supports the needs of children and parents, employers, and boosts our economic development and activity. And it's typically right in the neighborhood where families are located. My office has heard from a number of childcare advocates that family childcare providers have experienced discrimination from landlords because they have childcare in their rental units. And the item before us right now will do more to ensure that these providers are protected and able to continue operating their small business out of the home that they are renting, and to make sure that landlords and tenants are educated on this subject. And with that, I will hand the presentation over to my Deputy Chief of Staff, Justine.
Thank you, Councilor Campillo. I'll need about 13 minutes.
All right. There's nothing better as an advocate than hearing your words then said by an elected official. Am I right? Am I right, friends? We were so excited that in July, that issue not only passed unanimously, but we had a number of other council members just speak to the critical importance of doing more to address our childcare crisis. So we really see this as an important step in our longer term journey to address pay parity for childcare providers, access to families, access to funds for renovations and expansion of facilities. So even though we've been organizing for multiple years, really feels like we're just getting started. But it's amazing to have partners, a part of the base. If you go on to continue watching the public testimony for that item that passed in January, you'll hear from Build Up California, you'll hear from LIFT, you'll hear from Child Care Law Center, childcare providers, parent voices, YMCA. We showed out that day and it really made a difference. The story's not finished though. We still have family childcare providers facing this discrimination. I think the awareness is helping, but we just heard a case a couple weeks ago of a provider who's from Somali culture and population, and she did receive an eviction notice that cited her childcare business. But to be able to point to the law and to support that provider in knowing her rights, it gave her the self-empowerment to stand up to that landlord, and fingers crossed she'll be able to stay in that unit and continue her critical services to community. But thanks again for the opportunity to share a bit of San Diego's story and our partnership with Child Care Law Center.
Thank you, Courtney, for that great information. And right now we are going to launch a post survey to help us get a better sense of how that information is landing with you all. So hopefully you are all seeing a Zoom poll on your screen. And it's 4 quick questions. We're going to take a little bit of time to answer those questions right now. And I'll play a little bit of music for a minute or two as we answer those quick questions and get ready to close out our meeting. So we are almost halfway to participation with our quiz. We have the first question asks if it sounds like your community is SB 234 compliant, and it sounds like about half of the folks on this call think they are, but we also have a mix of about half that are not sure or don't think they are. So definitely looks like there is some work to do. The next question asks if you know of unlawful evictions of family child care providers in your area now that we know the law. And so a majority are saying no, which is excellent news to hear. But again, we are seeing quite a few folks saying that they're unsure or that, yes, they are seeing unlawful evictions. So I see Child Care Law Center has dropped information in the chat so that you can get connected for more resources to learn more about what your rights are and how to support folks who find themselves in unlawful evictions. As we learned, zoning permits and business licenses are also unlawful for family child care providers. And so it's good to see that a majority of you all are no longer paying these fees. And last but not least, the question, if you didn't get a chance to answer in the beginning, where you're joining us from. So that is our poll. Thank you so much for participating, and I will pass it on to Esmeralda to close us out.
Thank you, Pamela, and thank you to Courtney and Karina once again. And I'm going to invite Karina to share. Oh, thank you. Lori has shared in the chat a sign-on letter. If you would like to sign on, I believe today is the deadline. So if you would like to sign on to Child Care Law Center's letter, please click on that link. And she has also put in the chat, if you are being wrongfully evicted, please, you are a family child care provider, contact them directly. Karina put her contact information in the chat, as did Courtney. So Courtney and Karina are available if after the presentation if you have any questions to reach out. Our intention was to have a little more time for question and answer, but we tried to do our best answering the questions as they came up in the chat. And if you have any others, please feel free to reach out to us so that we can get you the information that you need. And we really just want to say thank you for sharing space with us today and for being here, because we know that this work goes hand in hand with the work of Build Up California, of expanding and improving and sustaining early learning care facilities throughout the state of California. And we really appreciate your time, and we appreciate our presenters for sharing all of this wonderful information about your rights. And we also would like to ask you to please fill out a quick short survey, which will take 3 to 5 minutes. We're going to put that link in the chat for you all. It's already there. Pamela has dropped it in there in both English and Spanish. If you could please fill that out before you sign off. Thank you again for being in community today, and we look forward to the next time we get to see you. And we wish you a great rest of your day and happy October.